Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm
I'm
good.
good. I'm good too. I'm back after a brief illness. I lost my voice. It was, traumatic, so, it's just one of those things when you're a vocalist and you lose your voice. That's really scary.
Yeah, it's
So.
it's definitely a rough thing. Our voice, we like our last episode, we discussed how important the voice is.
And then
And
I lost mine over kind of around New Year's, And I was like, this happened to me years ago around New Year's too. And it taught me a lot. I actually wrote a post all about what you can learn from not having your voice. So anyway, so we need to be careful about what we talk about on the Psychic Tea.
absolutely.
Then all of a sudden we're being challenged in that area. So yikes, past lives today. Yikes. Oh my
Yes.
God. Out.
Huge interest for me and for many of us in the community, as a lot of us surround our faith with the knowledge that we'll all return again together.
Yes.
That there is no real end.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited about today, and a lot of people are. So I've gotten so many messages about this particular subject since we posted it. It's a lot of people are interested in this subject, so I'm eager to get into it. But before we do that, I'd love to see what you pulled for a card for us for this next 4-week cycle. Because we are in 2025 of the Common Era, we got a whole brand new year ahead of us. So
I think it kind of, today's card, which is the Six of Cups.
Yes. Beautiful.
It's very appropriate when we discuss past lives.
It really is.
We're thinking about nostalgia and things that have occurred in the past.
Yes.
It's some people have called this the soulmate card, where it ties us to connections that we had with other people that we've known before and previous lifetimes. So sometimes when a querent, when somebody's sitting in front of me, asks me, is this person's for me? The soulmate card will come up, the Six of Cups. And it's not always an easy read because, just because you knew somebody in a previous lifetime doesn't mean you should be with them. So I also like to look at this card as something that is requiring a new beginning, a new energy. Okay. Once you analyze the past, you can't continuously drift that current. You have to look at the memory and then being able to move on. Okay. When I do see this card, it is a very, very warm, positive meaning. Okay. Because it's the exchange of emotion. So sometimes it's a message of a very blissful future, a time when you'll be re-honoring things that have passed beside you, and you kind of let float away like clouds, that it's coming back. So old memories, old people's returning. But it is an extreme, it's that ability to be childlike. I saw this when I pulled this card this morning. I went, oh my goodness, I'm going to Disney World. This is an opportunity for me to be carefree and like a child, to remember a time, to bring something back into me that was gone, that youthful, careless feeling of, lack of responsibilities, maybe just limitless joy where we don't have to worry about what bills we have to pay or who's saying what. To me, that is it's overall, this is a great card. I hope that we really reflect on it this month, because it's supposed to warm the heart. It's supposed to bring you hope, but we all have to be careful of nostalgia. Did you know that nostalgia was considered a disease at one time, something that people were treated from in the 1800s? Nostalgia was considered a form of hysteria.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't know if I should really feel surprised about that since, hysteria, you know, the whole idea of where hysteria, the history of that word alone, um, having to do with women
Yep.
and, the feminine ideas of emotional connection and things of that nature, and to be overly emotional was considered to be a disease, basically.
Mhm.
So I guess I shouldn't be surprised at that. This card often comes up with friendship stuff, not only soulmates in the sort of romanticized sense, but also kind of soul friends and soul pockets of soul families, I guess, maybe people that
Yes.
kind of recirculate in and amongst each other through lives, the idea of that circle that kind of dissipates and reforms through lives over and over again. And so, yeah, and the sixes in the tarot are all very positive. The sixes have like positive connotations, much the way sextiles in astrology have really positive, harmonious implications. The sixes are a good place to be in the tarot. So cups being intuition, love, and all kinds of good things in that regard. When I see this come up in a reading, it is positive. It's but it also will link to people from the past kind of coming back into your life, rekindling old relationships, or maybe people from past lives coming in and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, and like you said, that can be good or bad. There are times where maybe some healing needs to take place from something that happened in the past. There are times that lessons from the past are coming back around because maybe you didn't quite learn it the last time. So it's coming back around to show its face again to see if you get it this time. So a lot of that can
Absolutely.
also be indicated with this card.
And about soulmates, I know for a fact soulmates can be your cat or your dog or your best friend. Absolutely. I
The
don't
soul dog and the soul
Yeah,
cat.
absolutely. I've
Absolutely.
known those. I have known this dog in many a lifetimes. I'm with a soul companion. And
Yes.
when I connect, things that have actually stirred emotion in our souls sometimes stay with us forever. And
Yeah.
I often think, Sandra, what would it have been like if we were children together? Is there a lifetime that you and I were
I know.
actually two little girls or two little boys, who knows, and we're just at play together? Because I
I
certainly
know.
feel like that when we spend time together and we're goofy. I feel
Yes.
like we're children at play.
Yes. And I when I look back on all my friendships, and I actually have kept many friends from different stages of my life, from being less than 10 years old. I have two dear, 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 dear friends from when I was less than 10 years old. I have friends from my high school era that are still dear, very dear to me. I have friends from like college and 20s. My Rocky Horror Picture Show crowd, and people that are still in my life in a very tangible way. We still go out, we still hang out, we still have margarita nights, right, Jean? And so like there are still people from, but you're a friend I made as an adult, and that's super rare. It's harder to make friends when you're older. It's easier when you're a kid. And it's like that's super important. Like we came into each other's lives at a really pivotal time. So as much as I might get nostalgic and think to myself, what would it have been like if we had been kids together in this lifetime? I think it was super important that we kind of collided when we did.
Absolutely. I think everything happens for a reason. Um,
Yep.
and I think that for us to only look at small portions of our lives to be like, "Ooh, these were the people that were in my past lives," is completely wrong. As a person who has been regressed
Mm.
It's amazing the different people that will pop up in the regression, and it's not always everyone you know. It's not like you're walking into this world of like, hey, it's everyone who's my friend right now. But it's amazing the people who have faded away that, you can understand the lessons that you need to learn.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about working with past lives, there's a couple different sort of sets of crystals, I guess, that I would want to talk about. So one set of crystals that I would like to talk about would be crystals that you're going to use to like, if you were going to be regressed, you can use these. So if you're in a regression, if someone else is regressing you, or you might carry them with you if you went to a reading, and we'll get into that later. Because we are going to have a psychic on who does past life readings along. Of course, Leanne does them as well. But we're going to have a guest psychic come on and talk about those readings as well. But these might be things you'd carry. And these are things that I feel you can not only access ancestral knowledge, but also past life knowledge. One thing I would say is amber and jet. I'm going to lead off with amber and jet. And if you know, you know. But amber and jet as a combination is incredibly powerful with regard to past lives. Both of these stones have been here. They're super old. So they've been here for many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So this is a material that comes from way back. So it's been present and sort of experiencing many ages here on the planet. And so this kind of energy is what you want when you're linking back through time. You want that kind of ancient energy. So that's one that I would say is really powerful. And so, of course, it and the combination is incredible, as many of you know. So that's one that I would definitely say be wearing that if you're getting regressed. Be wearing that, if you or carry it. If you're and if you're doing readings for people. I mean, we have a whole other purpose for amber and jet, of course, but that's another layer on amber and jet. Petrified wood. Petrified wood is another stone. This used to be a tree, right? So this is a tree that lived so many thousands of years ago, and now it's a stone. That's how long it's been here. So petrified wood is another excellent, and that's its primary purpose for me when I use petrified wood. It has to do with, either accessing ancestral knowledge or past life knowledge. Septarian nodules, that's another one. This used to be mud, basically. That's how old this is. And a lot of times some people call these dragon eggs. But this is septarian nodules. This is another excellent, if you have this and you work with it, then and it's super grounding. So sometimes you can also just use it for that purpose, but it definitely brings in the past life knowledge. Prehnite is another stone that I recommend. Prehnite, this beautiful green, which oftentimes will have epidote or other things, like even tourmaline will be buried in it. Prehnite is excellent for healing traumas and healing things that might come up through these past life journeys. So if you're faced with, and a lot of people, and we're definitely going to get into this, a lot of people will see things in their past lives that are traumatic. Prehnite is going to be something that helps clear that and helps heal that. And then rutilated quartz is another one that can help you access that. And I'm just going to show in a piece of jewelry. Rutilated quartz will help with that as well. Now, if we're talking about straight up accessing yourself, when you're accessing yourself, when you want to get the knowledge, maybe from your past lives or even from other things, now we're going to talk a little bit about the Akashic record, because that does kind of cross over. And if you're a psychic that works with the Akashic records, these are going to be crystals you're going to want to have on your table when you are accessing the Akashic records. What is the Akashic records? It's like higher dimensional, energetic library of knowledge of all the knowledge that's ever been gained from being here, right? So if you could imagine a giant library with all the wisdom that's ever been gained through the ages, that's the psychic Akashic record. Everything that's ever happened and into the future, but we won't even go there with the time travel. We won't even go there, but even things that are going to happen in the future are stored in the Akashic record. So how do you access that? I'm going to give you 5 different crystals that I would definitely use for that. One is anything in hydro. So I'm going to show you a sphere that I have, and hopefully you can see the bubble. This is a personal one that I use, and hopefully you're catching that bubble on the camera. And this water was trapped thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And that's pure water that's never been touched by any kind of pollution, any kind of anything. It's like the purest, it's some of the purest water that still exists because it's trapped in that crystal, right? And it has, water is a psychic magnet. Like water is one of the elements that just absorbs psychic energy. It's why we do tea leaf readings, and tea leaf readings can be so powerful, and we can take that water into our bodies, right? So that water trapped in that crystal, that's going to be super powerful. Yeah, I have an anhydro on too. That's going to be super powerful for when you're trying to access past life knowledge through the Akashic records. Another one is Lemurian crystals. Lemurian crystals are the ones that have the lines. They have like little ribbed lines down the sides, and you can feel them with your fingers. And it's almost like a Braille record, right? But those crystals are considered record keepers and extremely powerful for accessing the knowledge in the Akashic record. Herkimer diamonds, that's another one that's another crystal that is oftentimes associated with accessing knowledge in the Akashic record. Diamonds in general, how they're created, and we all kind of learned that in school, right? So these Herkimer diamonds are considered to be excellent, and they are, when you think about it, because they're double terminated, they're a conduit of energy and information going in both directions. So as a psychic, pulling in that energy and also being able to effectively communicate that energy, effective communication in both directions, right? For the Akashic record. Another one is K2. And believe it or not, I don't have an example of that to show you right this second. K2 is another really powerful one. It is azurite trapped in granite, and it's mined in the second highest mountain in the world, which is in Pakistan. And that is super powerful also for accessing the Akashic record. And then danbarite, which I've got some examples to show you, but you'll see in danbarite, it has a very interesting triangular point shape. And a lot of times, like when we talk about the shapes of crystals and how that shape impacts with the triangle or the pyramid seems to be a shape that is commonly associated mentally with the past, right? Maybe from the ancient Egyptians, but the idea of the pyramid or the triangle is very popular in that space when you're talking about past lives. So a lot of crystals will be formed into pyramids or triangles, or they have triangles in them. Another one, honestly, is this is apophyllite. So, and it forms into these little pyramids naturally. And so this is another one that's oftentimes associated with accessing the Akashic record and or your own personal past life knowledge. So working with those crystals, highly recommended, especially if you're a psychic that does those types of psychic readings, or if you are somebody that is a hypnotist or otherwise does past life regression work. All of those crystals would be helpful to have in your collection and in your space to help people, to help put people in the headspace they need to be in to access that energy and access that knowledge. So those are my recommendations. And definitely in the comments, let me know if there's a specific crystal that you have used in the past when accessing. Some people would talk, I'm sure labradorite would come up. And there's definitely others, obviously amethyst, because it's just a powerful psychic crystal. It's just, it's almost just synonymous with psychic activity. So I'm sure some people would say, oh, I have an amethyst that I use, but these might be a little bit more off the beaten path, and just wanted to mention them in case anybody was interested in getting into this. Then those are what you're going to want to have on hand.
That's amazing, Sandra. Right now, K2, that the crystal rings that you had supplied to Pentagram, people are going crazy about them because they love the story of where it's located. But I have to tell you, it does pack a punch for past life in mediumship.
Yes, and it has the eyes. It has the eye, like it's like a natural evil eye.
Yes.
So it has like a natural evil eye to it, and that is the eye that sees, that
but
that
you feel protected.
Eye protection as well.
As you're doing this kind of stuff, you need some kind of protection. You just can't go about it. And what's even great is you can take the crystals, right? And
Yes.
I have a past life charm bag. So I have a piece of amber in there. I do have I have a labradorite in there. I have a couple of stones that you were talking about in that pouch. And I've included some things to smell. Okay. Because smelling that sense will help you connect with your past lives, help you connect with others, because there's certain smells that trigger in the past.
Yes.
It might be an individual thing, like the smell of anisette takes my grandmother back, but vanilla oil is noted to connect people with the past.
Yes, definitely. Memory. One of the strongest scents to recall, one of the strongest is vanilla. Now, if you hate vanilla, don't use it.
Thank you.
If you hate it, you're not going to like that. You know what I mean? So there will be others. For me, honestly, frankincense is something that I can definitely see people using. Maybe for the same reason. It's like hardened, tree sap. It's, it gets developed over time.
Yeah. And
perhaps that's why it links up.
It's old.
Past life, but
yeah. But it's been triggered, like dragon's blood may work for people. There are certain things that will trigger for you, but not for someone else. For me, it's lilacs, because we had lilacs in my yard when I was growing up, and that smell reminds me of summer, right?
Me too.
Yeah, and you smell that, and it brings you back. But what would bring you back even further? And I like the idea of frankincense. Frankincense may take you to a time where you were even further back, because those were the common incenses used in medieval times, or
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. The kinds of incenses that have been used for thousands of years, those are the kinds of incenses that have a lot of association with, with the different times in human history. So it's like it travels through and continues to, it continues to be that scent that is associated in certain ways with blessing and cleansing and stuff like that. So yeah.
Darth said, contributed that they use lavender, and I use lavender as far as for past lives because it calms me down. There are certain herbs that I use or blend into an incense when I'm doing past life work, because I want to help reach almost like a hypnotic state. So then I'm going to use the mugwort, and I am going to use things that calm the nerves and let me go into a trance state easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that I want to say, because Zoe asked, I've always been curious about what overarching themes my lives have carried, and if there are people I have in my life now that I've known before. And that would be an excellent reason to go get a reading with somebody that is experienced in past lives, because they're going to start you down that journey of identifying certain things and patterns through that reading. And that might be a good thing to do prior to getting regressed, because regression can be really deep and really, like, I would not recommend regression at a time of your life when you feel a lot of upheaval already. I would recommend it at a time when you're feeling good, and you're in a good headspace to handle whatever comes up. But a reading is a little less, I don't know, intense, I guess is what I want to say. Getting hypnotized and actually regressed is on a whole nother level. And so I feel like a reading is a good way to start and get started on that journey rather than immediately going in and getting regressed, which I think can be like just like a shock, almost like a shock to the system. But yes, I'm going to identify a few different ways that you can know that you like clues. Basically, I'm going to lay out a few clues to let you know that you're experiencing something that is probably an echo from a past life. One that's common is an intense feeling that you can't explain. And this may include strong connections to time periods or cultures that are not your current culture, or immediate connections with a place you've never been before. But the minute you step foot there, you have an instant connection, something clicks the minute you step foot there. And you're like, whoa, why do I feel like this is a part of me somehow? This is a part of me. My soul, a piece of my soul is here. And so that's, if you're experiencing that, that's a clue about a past life. An immediate connection with a person that you've never met before. When you're sitting and talking to somebody and you're like, I feel like I've known you my whole entire life, that's a clue too. Knowing a language, or even being able to speak a language, either understanding a language or even having it come out of your mouth, that you have no explanation for why you would know that. That's another big clue. That's another big hint that it might be from a previous life, something that is a residual that you're just suddenly pops into your mind. A hidden talent that you have with no explanation. My mom used to call me Annie Oakley. She used to say that I must have been Annie Oakley in a past life, because from the second that I picked up a gun, I was a crack shot. And no reason. I just had incredible, I almost made a whole rifle team at one of the colleges in Boston quit, because the first day I went in, I shot a 94 4X. And people were like,
there you go.
I'm out of here. She's never fired a rifle before and she shoots a 94 4X. I'm out of here. I'm done. Recurring dreams from a different time period. Leanne, you and I both.
Oh my goodness, so much. The dreams are it's an overwhelming theme in my life. We should definitely do a dreams episode. And this would definitely be a great bridge to this, because you will dream of people in different situations that you recognize. It's wild. You know, it's also if you're daydreaming, okay? There's the two different types of dreaming. Sometimes just intrusive thoughts of people will come into your head. And I'm telling you, you know them. Yeah.
Right. And lastly, on the clues, I would say birthmarks that might be interpreted as either like an echo of like an injury that you suffered in a past life, or something that's a mark on your body that's not something that you sustained in this lifetime. Like nothing would put that mark there, but it is there nonetheless. And that might be also an echo from a previous life. So those are all clues that might give you an idea of where some of your past lives come from, places you have been in another life, lifetimes that you've lived. And so all of those are considered widely known clues to that might key you in to lives that you've had, in, you know, the things that you've already done, things your soul has already achieved and done in other lifetimes. So there you go for that. Now, in terms of if you want to do this and you want to, get into this, past life regression therapy is one thing. That's a form of hypnotherapy. And that's kind of different than just having a reading with a psychic that's going to talk to you about your past lives. No matter which direction you go in, you want to consult a qualified practitioner. This is definitely not something I would recommend that people just start exploring by themselves. I would recommend going and getting a reading, and then eventually, if you're interested after that, I would go with someone that does regression therapy, and I would research either of those. I would want somebody to be qualified. I would want to know that they had done this successfully many times. You don't want someone that's just winging it. And it's something in the beginning, even if you've experienced little echoes from your past lives, or even if you've done something like in a group setting in the past, I wouldn't advise it to go it alone. It's not the kind of thing that I would advise somebody to do by themselves. I think there's a lot we can encounter in that headspace that it's good to have somebody right with you. It's good to have
be with somebody you trust.
A buddy, just at least
when you are regressed, you have to know that you're vulnerable in that moment.
Exactly.
Okay?
And so,
especially for your first time.
Yeah. And when you get into that brain state and you access those past lives, you may need emotional support to process the things that you learn there. So it's not something you're going to want to sit in your room by yourself and just go into. Certainly not in the beginning. It's the kind of thing that you'd want to do, like I said, maybe a group setting, maybe just with a buddy, with a psychic, with someone that, if you're going to get fully regressed, with someone that's experienced in hypnotherapy. It's the kind of thing you definitely want someone guiding you, and at least someone being there for you. And the other thing is to maintain a critical mindset, be open, watch out for distress or, if it starts impacting your daily life in a negative way, get some help with that. This is not the type of thing that you want to have to, completely take over. If you get regressed and then you find that this is something that's causing problems in your daily life now, get some assistance with that. Don't let that type of thing continue. Maintain a critical life, maintain a critical mindset, make sure it's not having a negative impact on your present day.
Yeah. You don't want to ruin it, because I probably jumped the gun. One of the past lives I've done in the past, it was on vacation. So you're coming out very, very jarred and very disoriented. You're a little here and there, and it was great. I'm glad I did it, but I wouldn't have done that way.
You were overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I remember how you were overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
So if you do something like that and then you've got other plans in place that you need to go to, it's like you want some time to sit and process, but there's no time to process because you have to go do this, that, and the other because you're on vacation. It's kind of like, yikes, Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, definitely make sure you leave yourself, if you're getting regressed, make sure you leave yourself a lot of space. You can get a past life reading. You know what I mean?
That's easy. I can do that. Yeah.
That's easier. It's just not as deeply intense as a full on regression. So like, that's the kind of thing you want to leave a whole day. So you can just process like what you just, all that information that you get, because when you get regressed, you're there. You're not just hearing about past lives. You're in it. You think you're in it. You're looking out the eyes of your old life. When you get properly regressed, you're not even like in your body anymore. You're in that other body.
It's
That's
weird.
Leave yourself space
It's
for that.
weird. It's like you start to remember things. And for the first, I don't know, I would say month or two, because I was that way when I came back. I felt overly emotionally went with to the people that I remembered. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to tell about it all the time, and I wanted to discuss it to the point where I was bored. I just couldn't stop talking about it. And I wanted to be near and I clingy to the people I remembered.
Oh my gosh. So, you know what's going to help start us off on gaining an understanding astrologically? Tim Soaring Wolf is going to talk about the South Node and how that's a key to understanding some of our past life knowledge, right, Tim?
Yes. Hi, guys. And thanks
Right?
for having me again. I just lost connection. So I was like, just got back on right in time. I was like, there must be an important message coming because something is trying to distract. But I love the topic. I've had experience myself with past life dreams. And so I've dived deep. I love what you were talking about, all the clues. You know, even in a dream, I was going to just piggyback on what you were saying is that if you have that knowledge, like in your dream, you know how to drive a plane, for example, and you know you've never studied that before. You know how to do something. That's a great clue. But I love dreams, past life dreams. I have had one myself. And in astrology, I used to do little past life readings as well with the retrograde planets and the South Node, talking about that. I don't do them as much, but I do try to include them in my astro reports. And I have done research as well. Martin Schulman is an astrologer who has now passed, but he did a lot of work on karmic astrology and also the retrograde planets and also the South Node. So his little formula is if you have at least 3 retrograde planets or more in your chart, if you have a personal planet that is retrograde, or even if it's close to your ascendant or MC, then you definitely might have some past life karma brought into this life. Whereas I definitely could see all of those connections, but I do feel that even people who don't have any retrograde planets or even have one retrograde planet, you could still have those past life connections. And of course, the different lessons of each planet can relate to a possible theme of a past life. You mentioned, oh, yes.
Quick question. So I mean, I'm kind of the mind that most people here would have past lives, whether they had planets in retrograde or not. But where those retrograde planets fall, like what house, would be key to understanding the impact on the current life. And so of course, having more means more impact, right? So like, if this is falling in your house of relationships and this is falling in your house of work and this is so you're like, when you're looking at all of that, you need an astrologer like Tim Soaring Wolf to help you piece together, like, okay, what is impacting this life that I'm in right now? What are these karmic lessons? What am I pulling from previous lives into this one? And how do I maximize the good and minimize the bad, right?
Absolutely. And it can explain the things, like you said, little quirks or habits or, just things that you believe in. And so yes, the houses, I love that addition, but even just the sign or the planet itself has its own theme. So not even regarding the sign or the house, let's say you have Mars retrograde. And so this year, this lifetime, with Mars in retrograde, it may be difficult for you to express your anger or passions or even controlling your anger. And that could stem, if we're talking about Mars, maybe you died in battle and you were a soldier or you didn't complete your mission. And so there's all this energy that wasn't released in the past life. right? So it's coming out in this life. So even little messages like that. By the way, speaking of Mars, Mars is retrograde right now. So this is like a
yep.
great time to talk about past lives because it's also in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is the sign that is connected to, of course, the Divine Mother, but also our past, our memories, and our roots. Cancer rules the fourth house of the zodiac. The house of the roots are where we come from, our ancestors, our families. So Mars in Cancer, and of course we have our lovely Leanne. I can't wait to get a past life reading from one day. And for me, when I wanted to say about Mars and Cancer today. Mars is closest to the Earth. So if you go out in the sky in the nighttime, you should see it very bright. And we've got, a lot of cool planets in the sky. If you see Venus towards the evening star, Saturn is very close to Venus. So you could see Venus and then Jupiter and Gemini. Jupiter's in retrograde right now, and Jupiter is about spirituality and our faith. Jupiter goes direct on the January 2nd. But what I was going to mention is about the themes and some of the lessons that I used to learn about from astrology. You talked about the South Node. So that is related to the sign more than a planet or anything else. The South Node is just more of a calculation of where the sun's path meets the moon's path. So it's not a planet, it's not an asteroid, but it is a point in our charts, the North Node and the South Node. The North Node is meant to be, in Chinese astrology, the head of the dragon. The South Node is the tail.
The tail of the dragon, yeah.
The tail of the dragon. So the tail is what we are meant to flick off and kind of leave behind, let go, whereas the head is where we are headed, where we are meant to go in this life, in our destiny. So it's outside of our comfort zone. The South Node is our comfort zone. That's where we come from. We're used to those, but it can be our drain as well. So for example, Pisces, South Node, you could easily fall into being deceived or drugs or anything like that, or even in a past life, there could be, that's the negative side, but also your past life, you could have been a energy worker. Pisces is great with working with energy. You could have been a monk or a spiritualist in your past life. And in this life, and I'm using me as an example, I have a Virgo North Node. So Virgo in North Node, I am meant to bring that energy into the physical world. So as my Virgo North Node is more about practicality and the physical world, this is why I do great with working with candles, working with tools, working with physical things myself, instead of just working with energy. Now, maybe you're opposite of me. Maybe you're a Virgo South Node and a Pisces North Node, and maybe you did great with tools in your past life. In this life, you're going to do great with energy work, and spirituality and stuff. And I'm talking about that Pisces Virgo North Node because we are also just entered into a new North Node, South Node, Virgo North Node, and Pisces South Node. No, I'm so sorry. Opposite. Pisces North Node, Virgo South Node. So we'll talk about that in a moment. For the forecast, I'll do a little brief forecast at the end here. But continuing about past lives, and of course, Mars is in Cancer, so it's a great time to talk about it, Mars being in retrograde. And talking about retrograde planets, also, when I first began to do readings, I didn't like to do readings around Mercury retrograde because I'm a Gemini, that's my ruling planet. But I learned a little more as I go that, you definitely can get readings while planets are in retrograde. And as a matter of fact, past life readings are probably best when planets are retrograde. So like for me, when I maybe get my reading from Leanne or my next past life reading, I'm already planning to do it when Mercury is in retrograde. So, we talk about crazy things happening.
Yeah, because it's like revisiting a past life.
And the Mercury is the mind and communication. So when Mercury is retrograde, that's a great time to do a past life reading. We're communicating with the past, right? But any planets that are retrograde, we can see different themes. So if you look at your chart, of course, I won't take up time because, you guys can message me for readings if interested. But, each planet will have a different Venus, for example. If you were born with the Venus retrograde, in this lifetime, it may be difficult for you to express love or find love or maybe be fulfilled in love. And that could be because in your past life, maybe there was a Romeo and Juliet situation where you never got to meet your love or you never got to fulfill that love partnership, or maybe you died on your way to meet your lover, that sort of thing. So now in this lifetime, it really has to focus on learning to love yourself first, and then you will find love through others. And so Venus retrograde people, that's just a thing you may struggle with, but tapping into that past life energy can even help you to understand, like, where is this energy coming from? Jupiter, if you died while achieving a spiritual mission. Saturn is the taskmaster, so maybe there was an element of slavery or being a master or power control issues in the past. So all planets have these different messages. Like you said, Sandra, when you pull in the house and like the sign, it's going to give us more detail where we'll find more information. But yeah, tapping into that south node is great start to just learn about where you're coming from, where your comfort zone is, and also your drain, because you got to learn to let go of some of those things. And then when I talk about letting go, it's the negative sides of whatever sign it is, So if we're talking about the dark side of Pisces would be drugs or escapism, and addiction. So leaving those negative things behind that are associated with whatever sign we're talking about and focusing on the positive traits of the North Node, whatever sign, that's moving towards our destiny.
Excellent.
That sounds great.
What are we looking at? What do you think we're looking at for these next 4 weeks?
Yes, absolutely.
In terms of what's up in the stars, what's going on?
Great. Yeah. So we are approaching Aquarius season, very, very soon, 1/21, January 21st. So we got Pluto in Aquarius, right? So as we enter this Aquarius season, it will be powerful. Pluto is a planet of power. We may see those themes of liberation and freedom combined with digging deep and regenerating, or even destroying the old and restructuring something new. So Pluto energy, very prominent as we enter this Aquarius season. Of course, we've got Pluto in Aquarius. We're seeing a lot of Aquarian themes already. The most recent, with TikTok being threatened to cancel, everybody moving to red note. And that's like a form of rebellion, a little bit revolting against the status quo, but also very Aquarian in the sense of merging two completely different cultures that were very separated. And now people are learning Mandarin and they're learning English, and there's all these things happening that is so Aquarius, right? So as we go into this Aquarius season, January 29th is the new moon, and we enter the year of the snake, leaving behind the dragon, and this is the year of the wood snake. So very interesting year. And as we mentioned in our last show, I really feel like last year was the flights of fancy, like you said, Sandra. Now we're bringing it grounded, coming back to earth, and we're also shedding the skin of whatever toxic stuff we need to leave behind. And that's the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. So Virgos for the next 18 months are teaching us what to let go of, even physical toxic behaviors, bad habits. And Pisces is leading the way for the next 18 months. So people with Pisces in their chart, Sandra, and other people with Pisces prominent in your chart, Pisces energy will flourish. So we will see a greater focus, and we're already seeing it on mental health, spirituality, assessing authenticity in those areas, and also even the medical field and medications. All of those things will be themes that we are now going into. Full moon is going to be on February 12th. That's the next full moon. And next month, since we won't see each other, we will have Venus and Mars retrograde starting, both in the sign of Pisces. They will go back. They will start in Aries and go back into Pisces. So this is a very interesting, because we are the North nodes shifting from Aries into Pisces as well. So there's the alpha and omega of the zodiacs, bringing back from the past and the future. It's like realigning a lot of things. And with Pluto involved, it's like light and darkness, coming together in a lot of ways for this upcoming month. So we've talked already about Mars retrograde. We still got that. Mars will still be in retrograde all month, but we got Jupiter going direct. So that's going to be awesome. With Jupiter,
is this going to be a good time for money?
Absolutely. So Jupiter has been retrograde for several months, and Jupiter doesn't mean that growth has stopped, because Jupiter is all about growth and abundance, but it has slowed down. Jupiter slows down the growth so we can possibly review what we need to review, right? And now February 2nd, February 1st, Jupiter goes direct. So now all of those projects we've been working on, this is the great time for it to move forward. We will start to see the growth. Look to your chart in the area of Gemini. You'll start to see positive things moving forward. So the energy of Jupiter has been low these past few months. Sorry, Sagittarius or Sagittarius ruled people. It's been a little, not as great, but just a few more weeks. So Jupiter is going to increase that. Now with Venus in Pisces, Venus is exalted in Pisces. She loves being in Pisces. So definitely enhancing that romance and fantasy. But Venus does like to be in Pisces. So as she does her retrograde into Pisces, it's not exactly the worst of retrogrades, because Venus loves to be there. But we will see some revisit of the past as well, talking about past lives next month with Venus and both Mercury retrograde. So this is a great topic as we are moving into those two personal planets shifting direction before we meet probably next time.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. And if other people want to know how to get in touch with you, they should go to timsoaringwolf.com to book a reading, and they can talk about past life. You know, they can ask specifically, can you look at my chart and tell me anything about past life connections? Yes?
Oh, I would love to. I enjoy anything about that topic. I've done a lot of research as well. So thank you guys, ladies, and Happy New Year. Happy new Chinese year coming up.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Tim. So now I want to open the door and bring in a psychic who works at Zodiac Tea Room, Leanne's and Tim's shop over in Beverly. And her name is Raven Wolf, and she does past life readings.
Excellent.
Raven, you got to come off mute.
Hi.
Hey, how are you, girl?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Raven.
Good to see you
recently at the open house at Zodiac. Raven was doing little free readings for people at the open house, which I thought was extremely generous. And it wasn't a past life reading, though. So tell us a little bit about how you do a past life reading. How do you approach a past life reading when someone comes in and says, I want to talk about my past lives and how they're impacting my present life?
Well, it's interesting for me because with my past life readings, the way that I approach it is sometimes I do have crystals as well, just to have them kind of hold, because sometimes people can be a little bit nervous because they don't know exactly what to expect. But I have a K2 as well. I also work with lapis lazuli a little bit, and the Herkimer diamond. And then I just tell them, let's go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. And then I will, with their guides' permission, go ahead and access their Akashic records.
Okay.
And I will talk to their guides and talk
you can sense that they have guides in spirit, and those guides are helping you access their specific Akashic record.
Correct. So for me, each individual has someone that greets me at their specific Akashic Records library. Okay. So I personally, along with my guides, interact with that person who welcomes us in to go ahead and energetically start taking a look at what needs to be shown to the person in front of me.
Okay.
How does this work?
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Isn't this wonderful?
I love it.
Do the guides help with the hypnotherapy? Are you able, like, how do you, I mean, I know that's education but how does this all work together? Because one of the reasons why I love what you do, you take the spiritual and you're taking your science and you merge it together.
Correct. So, if we're talking about a reading, it's pretty, it's like, it's just a natural psychic door that opens up for me. If we're talking about past life regression, I'm getting psychic downloads at the same time while I'm guiding a person through the regression with hypnosis. So they're telling me what they are seeing in a hypnosis session, but psychically I'm still getting downloads of information as well that I'm writing down on the side that's coming from their specific their energetic spiritual being that's coming to that door to show me, to share with that client. And sometimes it has to do with things that are actually related in the present life as well. So it can be, let's say somebody has a fear, just a fear of, let me think of something general, like spiders, for example. If somebody has a fear for spiders, and it's super like extreme, and they don't know why they have that fear. Well, let's say in a past life they had a situation where they were bit by a spider and they passed away. Sometimes that energetically carries over
Yeah.
into the stream of the current life. So what I will do is I will go in and gather all that information, along with the information that I'm also receiving from the client in front of me. And then I will share that info, and then we'll see what we can do after the regression to help with the release of that energy so it doesn't affect their current life as much in the present. The
So
way
like,
I do.
if I have a friend who's afraid to drive over a bridge,
Mhm.
like gets really scared going over a long bridge, and that person were to come to you and say, can you take a look and see if this is something from a past life? So you'd set it up that you're going into the reading, contacting their guide, and then trying to get to the answer behind that specific phobia, as it were,
Well, and not just that, the cool thing about also working with mediumship on top of that is I can talk to that past life that they were in as that individual, talk to that individual that passed away to also gather information as well, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
Very,
I love that.
That's very cool. I did not have that done. That's
Now, Leanne, you do past life readings too, but you
Yes, I
you
do.
go about it in a different way.
Completely different. With
How do you
mine
approach
is,
your past life readings?
well, when I do a past life reading, I do lead me and the person in a meditation together. Okay. I generally ask them to visualize themselves in front of a mirror. And I tell them to look at their feet to start off, because sometimes feeling and seeing your own body in the past or in a different gender, like people, I've had people get upset.
Okay.
And I'm like, you got to deal with yourself, get over it. And to look at their feet and look up. A
Okay.
lot of people can't see. They literally can't see. They smell, they're able to hear, but they can't visualize when they're in a meditative state. So
Okay.
sometimes
Yep.
I see for them. And
Okay.
then I notice when I start talking, they're able to talk with me. But it's
Gotcha.
mostly the whole experience is I'm going to give you my psychic impression. It is,
Yes.
you are not hypnotized. It's
Right.
simply a psychic impression. I'm going to go with my gut instinct when I'm getting involved in your life. And
Okay.
I could randomly pop up anywhere. This is not a place that I highly recommend. It's like a great place to start,
Yeah.
but I don't recommend it if you're coming to work out some trauma. This is step one. You need to see somebody who is going to make you see, who's going to take you to a meditative state so you can actually face your trauma and then work it out. I'm here to say, this is a lifetime. These are the things I feel and see.
Right. So if we talk about this in terms of brain waves,
yes,
what you're doing in the meditative state is at one level.
Yeah,
and
I'm not taking you down.
Regressed, that happens at a different brain wave state.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes? So like the difference between, let's say, alpha and theta, right? Like if we were going to go into the science of this and somebody was going to like literally strap electrodes on your head, the reading that you're doing as a person who's not regressing the person, but psychically looking, you're going to meditate with that person and bring them into a certain, maybe it's alpha.
Yeah. It's probably somewhere alpha.
Like, even if she's actually going to regress that person, they're going to go like theta, like they're going to go into a whole nother
Yes.
brainwave state. Yes?
Raven is going to take you to a place where you are in almost like a dream state. Am I right? And that's what it feels like. It's like a dream state because you feel like you're living it, but
Yeah.
you can be pulled out very quickly. That's
Mhm.
why the environment you get this done matters. When
Right.
That's when crystals are going to be super important. When incense is going to be super important.
Right.
Sound matters so much.
So just
Vibrational music. Yeah.
so like just from my own brief experience getting a reading at Zodiac, um, that's a really cool space because you're in a complete private room with a door that shuts and you're like in your own bubble of total
Exactly.
privacy.
You're
So
not
that
you're not out there on the floor at Pentagram in October with 5 people passing by looking at products, kids are
right.
crying in the background. You actually have the opportunity to control the audio. The sound of the experience matters.
Yeah, so it's quiet and you're in that bubble, you're being led by Raven and there's nothing else distracting. There's nothing distracting her. There's nothing distracting you as the client. And it's quiet and it's in its own contained. Lots of
Did you
leg room.
get
Lots of leg room.
lots of
It's in its own room. It's in its own private room. So that I think that's good. If you're going to do that kind of level of work, I think you can get a reading. You can get a past life reading, in Pentagram when when the people have passed, whatever. But if you're going to actually get regressed, then I think you do need more of a space like you have at Zodiac, because I feel like that's going to be so much more. People are going to relax so much more. So they're going to be more open. They're going to be able to feel contained, like in a contained, safe space without strangers going past and conversations happening and things leaking into that. I've talked a little bit about trance work in the past, and I've talked about starting trance let's say you're at the beach and you're you're under your tent or your umbrella or whatever it is, you're relaxing in your chair, and you just start to almost drift. You're not really drifting, but you close your eyes. You're semi-aware of the surroundings. You can hear these 2 kids are throwing a frisbee around. This mother is calling her child and saying, come on up, it's time to go. You're hearing like different things happening, maybe a radio off in the distance, different things, right? And your mind starts sort of like playing the scenario. You can almost see those 2 kids running after that frisbee in your brain, even though your eyes are shut. And that you're starting to trance out, and you're starting to, the screen of your mind, if you are a person who has a screen of the mind, it lights up and all of a sudden these things are playing out, right? And so you're starting to pick up on all that stuff, and you're in sort of like a semi-meditative or semi-trance state where your mind starts creating the movie. If I'm getting regressed, I don't want anybody else's movie impacting mine. Like, I don't want to hear the conversation of the person, that's talking about this great book that you got to go read and la, la, la. You know what I mean? The movie they saw last night, the thing, whatever they just ate down the street, how great the Indian food was. I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want that leaking into my past life. So it's like, it's nice to think that you have a sort of a controlled environment where you're not, interrupted. You don't have other people's stuff kind of like leaking into yours, and you're able to, I feel like you're more open, and it's more private, it's more safe. And I just feel like that would be a better experience overall for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely, I agree. Raven, how do you like to set the space for one of your readings? And I have a big question. What do people what do people come to you for these past life readings for? How have they been impactful in their lives?
Those are great questions. So for setting the space, I actually do it individualized to the person that I am meeting with. So I do send like a little pre-questionnaire before the session to the individual, or if the person is coming in, I will just psychically pull and ask from their guides and my guides, hey, what can I put into this space, crystals wise? What can I put into the space that is going to bring peace? What's going to bring harmony for them to be able to go into this session? Sometimes it's crystals, sometimes it's the music, sometimes it's smells. So for me, it's not the typical thing for past lives, but I work with cedar a little bit more. Um,
Hmm.
but I there's just something about it that actually puts myself into a space of being able to work with someone. So I will do that separately from their session before they even come in. I have like essential oils that I'll work with. And then
Yeah.
I will give them a choice of like, is there a specific type of scent you'd like? Do you want nothing at all? Do you, I make sure to individualize it to the
Nice.
person that's coming in. And then as far as why people come in, okay, so sometimes people have reoccurring dreams that happen all the time, and they're trying to figure out like what it means, where it's coming from. Sometimes people have these, again, they have these fears of things that they don't know where these fears are coming from, that they want to have looked at. And then sometimes they meet certain people um that they're just like, I know I've had a past life with you. And they're not always people that are uh romantic soulmates, but they're soulmates of a different formation.
Right.
And they want to understand their connection and why they're so psychically linked. And so we get to explore those things. Sometimes it'll be specific um memories that they're having, and they don't know where those memories are coming from.
Mhm.
So that's what inspires them to come in. And so we take a look at those things. And then when those things that come in need to be released, then we look at that. But also, it's kind of fun because even within doing either a reading or a regression, sometimes people from those past lives that have crossed over will actually come forward with messages to help them in the current life that they're dealing with as well. So people will come to me for that as well.
That's very cool.
Very cool. And there was a question about if a client wanted to bring in a specific object that they felt might have a connection to a past life. Would you say be able to hold that object perhaps and get a read off of that? That's
Yes,
psychometry,
absolutely.
but would you be able to pick up on Andrew was asking about this Roman arrowhead.
Yeah, absolutely. The great thing with regressions is that, or even with readings as a basic, as a basic reading, um, being able to have an item can definitely help with getting that information. And it's like a doorway.
Yeah,
Like,
me personally, I love a good object link.
Yeah.
I love a good object link for a regular psychic reading, even.
For
You know, not
mediumship,
even past
all of
life.
it.
Like, oh, mediumship. I mean, is there
Yeah,
anything better?
yeah, no, that's
You
the
know?
best.
So definitely. And then Sarah had a question as well. Her friend was watching but had to head back to work because a lot of people are probably watching on lunch break. She was wondering, what does it mean to have an extreme aversion or not wanting to waste time on a certain space or thing, like they don't need to even look into it even though they for sure haven't lived it? Could that have been something that caused their downfall in a previous life? Is it something that they're avoiding? And is it a lesson? You know what I mean? And I know this is super individual and you'd really have to, it's hard to do hypotheticals like this because there are multiple I can think of multiple scenarios for past lives where this would come into play, but how do you coach somebody through something like that?
I think for aversions to certain things, we may need to energetically take a look at why they're having that specific aversion. Looking into the Akashic records, whether it's it's an Akashic records reading or a regression, but actually taking a look, is this person having this because in that particular lifetime they just didn't like it, or did it bring back a memory that really needs to be dug into a little bit more for that release, for that healing? So it really is individualized to the person. But if she's having an aversion to something that in this life doesn't necessarily make sense to her, that would be something to dig more into, I would think.
I would think that would be a reading, would get that started. A reading with
some of the things are readings,
bringing that up. Yeah, like bring that up in a come to the reading, bring that up, say, I would like to explore, especially if you're doing like a 15-minute reading, it's not like you're going to get, you're not going to be able to do 10 lives in a 15-minute reading. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to focus on maybe one or two issues in a couple of different scenarios, maybe. You know what I mean? If you book a half hour, can go a little deeper, but that's the person's choice, right? They can book different time limits, right?
Yeah, I think I actually think past life readings are a great way to go ahead and really get a look at what's going on. It is just as important as maybe getting a regression is. I think actually I would recommend for a lot of people that are just curious about it, or even just want a basic guideline as to what's going on, to start out with a reading, because then it kind of gives them a guidance as to whether they want to go with a full-on regression.
I feel like if something from a past life is stopping me from doing something in this life, I need to explore that. I need to explore why, because what is it that's holding me back? Because maybe there's something that we can unlock in that reading that gets me past that barrier. Like I want to be able to push through a blockage that's happening in this life that isn't actually for this life. Like, I don't want to be afraid of something or stopping myself from doing something based on something from before, unless there's a real reason why I need to stop that. Like, is there something that's going to happen down the road here? And that wisdom from that previous life is actually helping me by restricting me in some fashion. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, there are reasons, there are some obstacles that are meant to be there. Thank you. Thank you, Ganesha. There are some obstacles that are meant to be there. And then there are other obstacles that are meant to be busted through. So a reading is a way to identify, right? Like, what is a worthy, like, boundary and what is not. Like, help somebody get past whatever that aversion is, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of things have to do with fears.
And it also helps you to be able to forgive yourself and be able to move on.
Right.
Horrible fear of heights. I find myself less afraid every time I get into a plane because it's something I'm capable of facing. If it was a fear that was based in a past life, if I could face it, I could see where the root is. And you cut out what's bad. You look at it, and the thing isn't as scary when you bring it to light. You bring a monster to light, it just goes away. You have to face it. it's all connected to what are we stuffing in ourselves constantly, and not,
Yeah.
it's always not as scary as you think it is.
Yep.
And
And there's a quotation that I've seen recently, and I hate when I can't think of the person's name. I can't think of her name. Please look it up and give credit where it's due. But the quotation is, "You are far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way."
that is beautiful.
And it's something I've started living by. It's my mantra for 2025, guys. It's something I've started living by. And I feel like it's keyed in this subject because there's many things we are experiencing in this life that are sort of residually, they're residual things, they're echoes from before, that some of them may actually be worth, honoring, and others are meant for us to break. We're meant to break them in this lifetime. And so having somebody help you identify that, having somebody to bounce it back and forth with, having somebody that's experienced with it to be able to pick through, and get to the heart of the matter is invaluable in that regard, because you don't want to hold yourself back from things that you want to achieve based on something from long ago that is no longer valid. You could be holding on to something. We do it with stuff that happened in this lifetime, never mind previous lifetimes. We're holding on to defense mechanisms and all kinds of trauma that we don't need to hold on to anymore. Some things we need to just learn the lesson and move on. Learn the lesson, move on with the knowledge, but leave the pain behind. Just move on with the knowledge, right? And so the idea of this is that these types of readings can help do that.
It
And
does.
I think people of all ages can benefit from this. I don't care what age you are. You could benefit from this reading, because if you're younger, well, it's going to change how you handle the rest of your life. If you're older, it's going to change how you frame what you've already done and how you look at what you have still yet to do, right? We're all somewhere in that in the spectrum of, where we fall in terms of, I don't know, our current life expectancy. But I wouldn't want to waste another day on something that I didn't need to waste the time on. Sarah brought up, they don't want to waste time on a certain space or thing. Yes, because time is precious. Every time we incarnate, it's precious. Every time that we are here. So we got to maximize that. And this is one way to do it. That's one way to do it, is if we are carrying trauma or, anything, if we're carrying and barriers and causing us to not pursue what it is that we should be pursuing, or not experience things we should be experiencing. If fears and phobias and things from and echoes from previous lifetimes are holding us back, we need to be free of that, and this can help. And it can also, to be fair, I mean, those are the weaknesses, right? But there's also strengths that get identified, Raven, right? I mean, people
Yeah.
find out certain good things. It's not all about terrible things. There can be incredible things that get found out in these readings, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like I have had people that I had a individual that came in that is totally okay with me sharing. Um that came in and she wanted to understand why she has such a deep love for nursing. And we ended up going into this past life where she saved her current husband's life. And so that explained a lot for her in the deep bonds that they had. So there's a lot of positivity that can come from these sessions.
That is incredible.
That is
Oh
so
God, that's
beautiful.
incredible. I love that. That's
Raven, have you ever found, I find this happens to me a lot. Has anyone ever been disappointed by learning what they were or what they did? I mean, I was reading a woman last week. I don't know if you were sitting near me, and I love her. And I said, well, chances are, and it wasn't even it was conversation beforehand. I said, chances are you were a prostitute. We were all prostitutes at one point. It's the biggest, although there were a lot of whores running around. She was like, I would never. And I'm like, well, what were you doing when you were either in China or India with places with large populations? She's like, no, I was somebody very, like, she thought she was somebody rich and Victorian. And okay, you're probably there. Just like me, I thought I was, running the temple of Isis. No, I was washing.
Not everybody is Cleopatra.
I was washing the floor. That's what I was doing. I was cleaning the toilet.
Not everybody was the Queen of Sheba.
Okay? No, not everyone. But we know what I was. No,
I was there too.
I was the Magdalene because, well, I think I won that argument.
I happen to know.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
I happen to know for sure that I was a prostitute in a past life because of flashbacks that I had. So yeah.
Some woman got so mad, she's like, I was never a man. I'm like, stop it. Come on. Do we have to go into this whole gender thing right now? You were probably a man. You weren't always a woman.
Right?
Yeah, so, things change all the time. Like every life is
I'd
different.
want to experience it all.
I do too.
I'd want to know all of it. And how do you know all of it if you're always playing the same role over and over? You're not going to know
for a fact I peed standing up at least once. I mean, come on.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Sarah also says, she also asked if there are certain media tropes or other types of stories we're drawn to that don't have a relation to in this life. Would that have any correlation to previous lives we've lived? I think so. If you're watching, a storyline, as it were, and you're identifying very strongly, not just in a brief, like we all can identify with a storyline. Let's be honest. But like, if you're feeling like it takes your breath away in that moment, or you start dreaming it over and over after seeing it or whatever, then I think so. What do you guys think?
I think so.
Could be a past life.
Could be a past life, especially if you're a person who's very involved with the latest murder, or if you like serial killers and stuff. Chances are you were either murdered or serial killer. I mean, whatever.
You know how many people
you weren't always good either. I tried to explain this. You weren't always your best person in a past life. Sometimes you're an asshole. And you had to learn, and you grow, and you've evolved. And maybe now in this life, you're meeting assholes. And that's why, because you were an asshole. Now you have to learn how to deal with yourself.
Real talk. Real talk on
real talk about what the hell happens when you die.
Real talk. I mean, and let's face it, not everybody has spent their whole life in this life being, angelic either. Like there's plenty that goes on right now in this life that we're not necessarily super proud of, right?
Right.
So just imagine if you've been around the block multiple times, multiple times.
Haven't always been a sweet baby angel. I mean, come on.
Right?
Yeah.
We have to learn and grow from something. So our experiences are important.
I'd be so boring if I was always nice, but I'm sure I was a serial killer.
I think it's also this comment. I was an absolute rat bastard in most of my former lives. I, as a psychic, would want to unpack why you feel that way or why you're focused on those types of lives. Because while I think part of the reincarnation journey, since we're talking about past lives, we have to talk about reincarnation, right? We have to say, in order to have past lives, you got to believe in reincarnation, right? We can't have this conversation with people that don't believe in past lives. I mean, with reincarnation, because then there are no past lives, right? So if this is the first time everybody's here, if this is, the only time my soul is actually going to enter into a physical body on this planet, we don't even have to have this conversation. So the fact that we're having this conversation means we have to accept reincarnation. But we also want to talk about what the goal is or why reincarnation is a thing. What is the idea behind reincarnation? And the idea behind it, I think, is that we get to experience certain things, but we also learn certain things because in some way we are kind of in training to sort of be ascended. We want to become more enlightened. And when we rejoin whatever our vision is of Godhead, we're rejoining something as a fully evolved being, entity, and so having to experience many different things, and that means experiencing different types of failures. It's not all going to be success stories. Do you have to think you were a rat bastard? No. So you want to unpack why, what's making you say that? Because I'd completely, if you came to me and we had that conversation, I would totally make you unpack that, because I feel like that is that's looking at it a certain way that's colored by the right now. You're coloring that by the right now instead of taking a step and taking like the 20,000 foot view and looking at all the lives and what's being learned and what's being, what is being experienced and why you're, I don't know, that says a dichotomy to me. And I like to play in the gray area. I'm a Libra, and the balance has to be struck somewhere in there. So it just
Andrew
feels,
is a sweetheart.
right? Which is why I'm like, okay, so do we have a nice guy, bad guy trope going on there, to bring Sarah's word into it? Do we have like a nice guy, bad guy? Like 1 minute you're the virgin and the next minute you're the whore, right? So you're either the Virgin Mary or you're Mary Magdalene, and there's nothing in between. Like, that's too black and white. That's too, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, in all my previous lives I was a rat bastard and now I'm the good guy. It's kind of like, let's unpack that. Let's look at that. Let's figure out what that is. Because I think everywhere in every life you're going to fall somewhere on that, on that wave. It's not all going to be like, oh, all these lives I was a terrible person, so I'm a good person in this life. I think in every life we're going to experience a little bit of both. And Leanne, you were talking about self-forgiveness. I think that's got to be a piece of it too. And we got to forgive ourselves for some of the things we allowed to go on in our lives, and some of the things that we have done in our lives, and some of the things, where we made decisions that didn't, that weren't in our own best interest or the best interest of people we care about. So it's like, and that, I mean, there's a piece of that in just about everybody's life. So one thing I will say, I think we can learn from past lives is how to definitely do forgiveness of ourselves, at least in this life. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, forgive everybody. Nope. You're never going to hear that out of my mouth. Some people in this life don't deserve your forgiveness. Just move on. Just move on. But ourselves, we need to reach forgiveness within ourselves. 100%.
All right.
Otherwise, we beat ourselves up.
Listen.
Otherwise, we beat ourselves up. You know what I
All we
mean?
can do is the best we can. And it has to be authentically best. We can't just say that. And we have to be present. Most
Yep.
important thing is to be present, to reflect on the past, learn from our past, but
Right.
to be present as much as we can for each other and for ourselves. So I would love for everyone to take that with them.
And I love that message. That's the message. And I'm going to be respectful of Lou's time. And I'm taking a look at the clock. It has
It's
come
the
to the
time.
hour.
It
And
has
we
come
did
to
an
time.
hour and a half today because I knew that this topic was going to be so rich and so like deep that I didn't want to shortchange it. If you are interested in pursuing this further, Leanne, Raven, Tim Soaring Wolf, go to Dial Up Pentagram, Dial Up Zodiac, TimSoaringWolf.com. If you want to delve into your past lives, these are the people to do it with. And yeah, love it. And then come and get your crystals with me, Gallows Hill Witchery. You know, on the lives, go to Gallows Hill Witchery's Facebook page or the website, gallowshillwitchery.com, and you'll know when the next lives are. And then you too can have amazing and awesome crystals. So
Thank you.